Welcome everyone who's joining. My name is Bo. I'm from Acelab. We're helping today's presentation, helping out with hosting. And today we are bringing you RAYDOOR. So RAYDOOR provides custom lightweight alternatives to sliding glass walls and doors. It's a really amazing custom system with a lot of capabilities and no floor tracks, which is a really beautiful thing. So really excited to dive deeper into their products today. And just to give a quick background about Acelab, if there's some time at the end after Q&A, we can go a little bit deeper into how you can find RAYDOOR's products and all of that good stuff using Acelab's tools. But just to give everyone a quick overview, this is a sampling of Acelab's team. So we're a company started by architects for architects, building technology and resources to be able to, simplify and improve the product specification process. So this is kind of, an example of some of the difficulties that Acelab is working to solve. So we have a single source, one tab site where you can, really walk through all steps from research down to projects, down to adding team members and collaborating with them directly on our site. I'm going to jump over real quick and just show you how to find RAYDOOR quickly by signing in. You can sign in with Google, so super easy. Once you sign in, this is your dashboard where you can always pick up where you left off. And if you know exactly who you're looking for, you can always type that into the search bar at the top. So I'll jump over to RAYDOOR's page on Acelab. You can connect directly with them here. You can also scroll down to explore all of their products, save them to your projects, as well as view their case studies and inspiration. And manufacturer pages are all formatted the same across Acelab. So it's a really great, refreshing way to be able to plug into the product research without, jumping from format to format. All right. So that is it for my quick little intro. If anybody's interested in learning more about Acelab and how to use it for your product specification workflows, feel free to reach out to me. My email is right here. We can set up a quick personal demo for free, and we're happy to walk you through the process more. All right.
Thank you, Bo.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Luke, for being here today. A few housekeeping things I just want to let everyone know. So we will be polling you today during the event, towards the end of the event, if you would like follow-up information to discuss an active project with RAYDOOR's team. We will just give a quick poll. You can answer that, and we'll go ahead and connect you directly with them after the webinar over on your Acelab account. So that's the easiest way to kind of get follow-up information, get in touch with RAYDOOR's team. And then the second thing I wanted to mention is that we will definitely have some time for Q&A. Feel free to submit your questions to the chat during the webinar. We'll kind of keep an eye on those. So if anything seems urgent, I'll kind of call it out. But for the most part, we'll save those for the end. And if anybody would like to raise their hand as well, you can totally ask a question out loud. We love to have a little discussion time. So, feel free to be brave and speak if you'd like to. And then other than that, I think we will be good to go ahead and start today's presentation. So Luke, I will hand it over to you, and I will be here to monitor Q&A and to help out with answering those questions at the end.
Thank you, Bo. Thank you for setting this up. Acelab is a really cool platform, really ambitious. It's what's needed in the industry, and I'm really excited that we're part of it. I really appreciate you pulling this audience together today. And Dana and my team, thank you for putting this together. I'm going to ask that you give me some immediate feedback if for some reason things aren't working. Ordinarily, I do this through a different webinar platform, so I just want to make sure it's all going well.
Totally.
So I'm going to share screens real quick and just make sure that everyone can see. Hopefully you're looking at a photo with two blue chairs through what looks like a sliding wall. Is that what you see?
I can't see anything yet, Luke.
It says you've started sharing, but waiting on the image to load.
It says double click to enter full screen mode.
Let's see, how does this work? We'll start again. Share screen. It doesn't seem to be translating through, although I'm sharing screen the way I usually do. Hold on, everybody. Thank you for your patience. We'll get this sorted.
Yes, thank you, everyone. I also wanted to mention while we're figuring out this screen share that I know the AIA conference is this week, so we definitely appreciate anyone who took the time out of this busy week to, to show up to today's webinar. And hope that anyone who is involved in the conference or is in San Francisco this week has a really great time and is learning a lot. We have a few of our team members there, so also if you are there, feel free to look out for one of our founders, Vardon, as well as one of our colleagues, Jordan, so they'll be around chatting with architects. There we go.
Oh, yeah? Okay, good.
Awesome.
So you guys see an image with two blue chairs. Great. What you're actually looking through is, this is like a home office example using a very thin stile and rail floating wall system that is Raydoor. And you're looking through acrylic, 1/4-inch acrylic. And on the right, you're looking at a translucent version of that wall, creating a 90-degree space in a residential environment. And this is a nice example of what Raydoor is. And so I'm Luke Siegel. I actually started this company 23 years ago in the East Village of New York City. And while we're going to get into more examples of the product, I just share quickly how it all began. My background was design, industrial design and sculpture. And I had a design studio in the East Village of Manhattan. And in order to keep people from looking inside from the street, I created a lightweight screen and hung it in the window. It was actually made out of 2 frosted shower curtains that I bought in Bed Bath & Beyond and just stretched it over a plywood frame. Hung it in the window, and somebody walked by one day and said, I really want this as a sliding door in my loft. At the time, I was just saying yes to everything. And so I said yes and created this 3-panel kaleidoscopic sliding work of art to divide space. It really wasn't intended to be a door company per se, but in trying to make a really thin stile and rail timber structured floating wall system, I had to come up with a different way to make it. It turns out it was unique enough, and I was able to patent the way that was made. So instead of using a frosted shower curtain, which would probably have gotten a phone call a day or two later from having a puncture, besides the fact that it's too thin to provide any sort of privacy, I decided to use 1/4-inch acrylic, and using 1/4-inch acrylic actually created a composite, 2 separate frames that use the acrylic as a structural component of the panel itself. So that was unique. I was able to patent it and invent hardware that would work with that twin frame design to allow for a super lightweight, easy to operate, thin stile and rail timber room dividing system. And this is just a quick demonstration. When you build a timber door, generally you have to build it strong enough to hold the glazing. And in our case, we just built 2 frames that actually encapsulate using the acrylic as a structural part of the frame. And when light hits the face of it, the edge glows like a ray of light, which is how we got the name Raydoor. And when we shorten the acrylic or polycarbonate on the bottom, that creates a natural channel for the guiding to occur. So if it's going to be a wall mount slider, or if it's going to be a telescoping wall to divide a larger space, that's the technology behind that. And so it just kept snowballing from there. And whenever architects and designers requested different ways to divide space, we just kept saying yes and engineering ways we could use that panel design to implement it. So you're looking at a photo of a millwork matched example of a sliding stacking system. That's actually parallel stacking. And again, you'll see there's no floor track there. So we've just been focused on that for the past 23 years. And like I said earlier, when we got our start in a residential environment, and it just kind of spread from there, eventually being requested to do commercial spaces. We got into commercial, and that's when we really started to innovate the frames and make sure that they were durable. That's when we started to innovate the translucent layers. The acrylic was no longer regular acrylic. We started using 3M coated abrasion resistant acrylic, so you could use commercial cleaners on it. But again, this is a lightweight solution, a fraction of the weight of glass, easier to operate. And we have a lot of different ways we can be creative with it. Another step in our journey was entering into hospitality over 15 years ago, started doing hotels. And again, push the limits of the frame technology in order to make it more durable to handle the abuse in hospitality. I'll show you a little clip or two about that in a minute. But so this is just an overview of the different markets we operate in, solutions we provide for senior living. We also provide for retail, healthcare. So this whole list here is just a little overview of that. I leave this slide in. I was just doing a remote presentation, actually an in-person presentation in California for hotels, and I like to leave this slide in just to showcase, because I think hospitality is an indication of durability, but we do a lot of different types of installations for different components of all these industries. So hospitality specifically, we hit the gambit of amenity spaces and in the rooms as well. And this is just a nice example. The photo on the right really showcases how, and in this case, this is polycarbonate, how you can really get creative and you can really make something that divides the space and actually gives you so much more flexibility from a standpoint of leveraging and maximizing revenue generating power using a movable wall. And I think the emphasis for us is that we also, and foremost, need it to be beautiful. It has to be part of the interior design conversation. And the technical, as I'll show you later, is also what makes the architects and the builders comfortable, because we're really pulling it all together in one offering. So this is just a few shots of some creative examples of how people have used our product in hospitality environment. And this slide here, I like to just showcase again, you could see that thin soffit where the HVAC system is running above the door system in the foreground. It's just a reminder that our panel is going to weigh something in the area of 70 to 120 pounds. No matter how large our panels are, they're generally much lighter than glass. So for instance, our largest panel size is 5 foot wide and 10 foot tall, and that's going to generally be in the area of 100 to 120 pounds in weight. So it's very versatile from that standpoint. So just getting into the ways that this really helps architects and designers and builders and design conscious end users. I think the turnkey solution is probably what makes it make most sense and gets ears perked up. And I truly take pride in the fact that the panels themselves are millwork on a level that is equal to or surpass anything that you can find anywhere. That's guaranteed. So when you see the product up close, I think you start to understand that it's more than just a door. It is a piece of moving furniture that has all the hardware included, and I'll demonstrate that in a minute. The other big thing is the lightweight design permits no floor track. So all our systems specialize in not requiring a floor track. Now you can use them. There's times where they make sense, but from our stacking walls to our sliding doors and doors that turn corners, you don't need a floor track, and it's a big advantage, both from a standpoint of design, in really having a space be a creative, flexible space. You don't want to have floor tracks running on the floor, but also eliminating that as a mechanical fail point and a way that you can create a trip hazard and also degrade the value of the interior when you have to rip into a nice floor. It's very easy to install, and a lot of that is due to the lightweight, and also from us engineering. A lot of the most complicated components of the install are assembled in our factory. So that, for instance, if you're doing a stacking wall, we're going to send the complete stacking area assembled. So the general contractor or the installing contractor can just mount that in place. So we try to keep it really simple. We also have a lot of different ways you can maximize daylight, bringing in daylight and maximizing privacy, whether it's translucent layers, films, artwork that can be applied, lots of ways to create various levels of translucency and bringing in natural light. And another big feature I think that people like about us, we make it in the USA. We make it in Deer Park, Long Island, and we ship it all over the country. Here's just a quick look at some of this examples of our frames. At the top row, you can see our laminate line. These are the 5 laminates we have in stock for our laminates. And this tends to be a 4 to 5 week production time for our laminates. On the bottom row is an example, just sort of an example, just kind of scratches the surface of what's possible with veneers. We have many different veneers in stock, and we stain match, paint match, all sorts of things you can do with the veneers. And they're usually 10 to 12 week production time. I quickly want to highlight that in our veneer line, we use a butt joint. The edges are a bit sharper. We're edge banding and cutting those frames in-house. On the left, you see an example of the mitered corner for our laminate line. The reason for that is there's a slight radius on the laminate line. The actual frame components are profile wrapped in advance, so we have them on the shelf. That's part of how we can offer them quicker. Now you can do customizations, a myriad of different customizations in the veneer line. It's just an example of one of our pocket walls in a hospitality environment, showing a larger bottom rail and top rail. So you can do a myriad of different things on all size projects with our veneer. You can do many custom things with our laminate line as well if the orders are large enough, tend to be 200 panels and up. I just want to show this slide. I like to just demonstrate. This is, we use MDF, a carb compliant MDF. That is part of the reason is because it's so stable, it's machinable. And yet at the same time, we don't rest on that. Part of the durability is that we have an HPL layer in between the actual MDF and the top layer of veneer. That allows for a lot of impact resistance, and it's why our product is so tough and works so well in all these commercial and hospitality environments. Here's just a little example of some of the glazing. As I said, we're acrylic and polycarbonate. We don't use glass. There are ways you can incorporate glass into the designs using muntin patterns and things like that if you want for certain decorative elements. We could talk about that if there's time and you have any interest in that. But this just showcases across just sort of a cross section. And the patterned example on the second from the right just shows an example. There's so many different custom offerings out there, whether they're from other companies like Lumicore and Freeform, which are popular brands. You can specify those in our product and we can have it built into the design, and you don't have to worry about procuring that. That's, again, back to the turnkey nature of our product. A system like this is a 6-panel symmetrical sliding wall, fully floating, overhead suspended, probably 9 foot, 9'3", something like that, these panels. It's a custom stained maple with custom muntin pattern. And you can see that polycarbonate, that's actually an eco resin 3-form, which is 40% recycled content in it and a Class A flame rated material. Our product is not a Class A flame rated material, or product rather. We tend to install with a sprinkler Class B, but you can specify materials that are Class A flame rated if that is going to be helpful from either a sleep easy standpoint, or it might contribute in some ways to lead as well, some of these products. So we can talk more on those, on the specifications that you can do with our product in order to meet certain codes or certain goals you have on the product, on the project. So this slide here just showcases, on the right, you see this is an animated menu. These animations represent fully engineered solutions with all the hardware and engineering ready to go. Now you can select any one of these GIFs on our website, and there'll be a follow-up page that sends this page to you. You can click any of these GIFs and it will take you to a page dedicated to explaining the details of these systems. And they're available for download on our website in PDF. And if you work with one of our designer estimators, and I believe David Barber is on the call with us today, he'd be able to help you engineer any of these solutions in slightly different ways if you want. And he'd also be able to get you the versions of them in CAD and in Revit as well. So that's a great way to incorporate and put them into your projects. I believe specifically that's something you can do through Acelab as well, if I'm right, Bo?
Yeah. I was going to say, this would be a great place to pause, and I'm going to go ahead and launch our poll so that if there's anything you'd like to connect with Raydoor's team about, go ahead and answer that anytime during the webinar. We'll connect you automatically.
Thank you, Bo. Thank you, Bo. Appreciate that. So just a quick jump into examples of some of the systems that we have. You will see an example of, this is just the simple barn door slider, right? Everybody is a big trend of the past 10 years. Interior wall mount sliding doors, now really renamed barn door. This is an example of the simplest sort of example of what we do. And a lot of times when we do large volume projects, it's because they're ordering 200 or 1,000 of these types for either hotels or multifamily or high-rise rental, lots of different types, or condo type projects. We'll have a few examples in here about that. And one way I want to just show is that when we do, our products tend to start at around $1,500 a panel, and that tends to be fully finished frames, all the hardware included, everything needed for operation, including some decorative elements. But it doesn't just stop there. I don't want you to think that I wanted to kind of show you this slide here that just showcases how some of the componentry that's used to suspend the product, or some of our pulls, or some of our sliding locks that slide into the floor to anchor the system, which would be included in any of our pricing, are already factory installed. So a lot of this just showcases how these components are already put in. That makes it really simple for the installer of various skill levels to be successful putting our product in. So this just shows you a close-up of the aluminum twin frame low profile mounting point that's in the top of each panel. And so there's animations like this that we have on our website that you can use to help explain to your clients. Some people, and sometimes designers, like to use these as well. So single sliding as an example, just a few things there. And I'm going to try to speed it up because I know we don't have all the time in the world. Case study example here is an example of some floor to ceiling sliders this was a commercial conversion in Buffalo, New York. Just an example. As you can see, it's got an ADA handle pull. Very simple to comply with ADA with us. Obviously, 32 inches clearance is something you need to specify from your design standpoint. But our product will often only require a pound of force to operate. 5 pounds of force is what you need for ADA. And you can see that we have ADA compliant pulls. This pull in here is an example of that. So something like this can easily end up as 800 or 850 a panel when you're ordering 200 or more of them, as an example right here. So sliding bypassing solutions are another popular solution. This is just 2 tracks with any number of panels that slide back and forth on their own footprint. So it's very low tech, very simple, very cost effective. Again, I would use 1,500 a panel as sort of an example starting point with a laminate frame and an opal glazing 3x8 panel, for example. But this is a 4-panel solution here. Just you can see on the right it's a veneer frame with a custom muntin pattern. But it's very versatile, very easy to install, gives you lots of access to the space. There's many ways that you can install it to kind of be versatile. It doesn't get out of the opening completely. So if you need that, this may not be the right system, but it does give you a lot of access, and it's affordable, which does leave room. When I say affordable, sometimes you want to keep your system price low so that you can use some of your budget for some of the more expensive decorative elements that you might want to include. So here's an example of a bypassing solution here. And then this is the same photo we saw earlier, just kind of featuring it as a case study example. It was a home office that got turned into a guest bedroom. A talented interior designer who works with us a lot. Layla Satow did this one here in New York. So now moving to sliding walls. Sliding walls are 3 tracks, 3 panels and up. So if you have these 3 panels, that you pull one panel, the next one is going to come with it automatically. Again, floating above the floor. You may be wondering, how do you secure this? What keeps it from swaying? Well, it can be a floor guide or it can be a flush bolt. But this is just an example of a 4-panel solution here. Again, these kind of animations are available on the site. Now, this can be stabilized with a single floor guide. It can be stabilized with a flush bolt, which would require it to be lifted manually so that you can move it into different positions. Did we have a question there? So here's an example of a couple of animated GIFs. Again, these are pre-engineered solutions you'd be able to get from our website. So there's a case study of an outpatient facility in Texas. They actually use this in a lot of different instances because it's really simple to operate and there's no floor track. It's also easy to clean. This is an example using one of our charcoal frames, which is one of our in-stock series from our laminate. So this slide here I like to show because it's just an example of how a sliding wall with no floor track can be reimagined in ways that allow you to move furniture, change how the space is being used by people. So I really like to say that you should, if you're using a floating wall, print 3 or 4 different floor plans of the same space and show your clients how they can reimagine the space depending on the needs of it. Like a lot of times today with interiors the way they are in commercial environments, especially when you're trying to activate the space, you want to be able to show options and show how people can use the space in different ways. So we also do pocket doors. This is an example of pocket doors. We're actually collapsing our pocket doors with our pocket wall systems here, just to save time. So this is great for single sliding pocket doors. It also works for pocket walls. Like as an example here is a 4-panel symmetrical pocket wall. And you can see how we have multiple iterations of the pocket wall. Again, all these details are available on the website. And here's an example, case study example of a pocket wall in a hospitality environment. And you can see this was ADA compliant poles again. And they had a larger bottom rail and top rail. Sometimes architects want to specify a larger bottom rail for sliding. It is somewhat debatable. I welcome you to give me your opinion about that. We've had ADA consultants say you don't need it on sliding. Some of them say you do. You know, it's just one of those things. We work with architects and designers all the time to try to meet code compliance and help you be successful in the project. So please share your stories if you want. Here's an example of the wing wall. The wing wall is the same as a pocket wall. It's just instead of sliding into a pocket, it slides in front of a wall. It's a really cost-effective, highly intuitive, easy to operate space dividing solution. You pull one panel and all the panels join with it, follow across the space. And I'm going to try to speed up a little bit so we have some time. You can see here is an example, a case study. This is a Starbucks using 5-foot by 10-foot panels. Very likely this was set up with a key lock on the far side for security. And it has an opal translucency. So it lets light in, but it doesn't let you see any detail. Moving right along, I want to just give you this overview today. So sliding stacking solutions, I mentioned earlier, our panels start at around $1,500 a panel in terms of their price. When you get into the sliding wall solutions where panels telescope across the space, it's a little more than that. It's around $2,000 because there's extra hardware and componentry. $2,000 a panel at the sort of beginning. And at the same time, the sliding stacking solution that we're looking at right here is an example of our, I guess, our most high-end offering from a system standpoint, flexibility. So with all things being equal, laminate frame, opal glazing, sliding stacking solution starts at $3,000 a panel. And I'll try to explain the versatility you're getting with this particular system, which makes it very simple to create much more architectural looking flex space. For instance, this is all on one track. It has a pivot door access, and then it can slide and stack on top of the pivot door. This can slide and stack perpendicular to the opening, parallel to the opening. These systems can slide and turn corners. You can make entire rooms disappear. Just keep in mind, it's a little less intuitive to operate the wall than the other systems. Sliding walls are simple. You just pull them and they all come with it. Sliding stacking solution does give you the opportunity to specify a pivot door, which you can actually do with any of our systems. But this, you can see how the pivot door would be an intuitive way to get in and out of the space, but someone would probably need to be shown how to actually operate the wall itself and to collapse it and open it and close it. That's not a week-long educational seminar. That's really 20 minutes showing someone how to lift the flush bolt and move the panel individually. Again, these are lightweight solutions. This is the sort of system you always see in those banquet hall dividers that are creating two different spaces. In our case, it's a lightweight version of it. And it's probably a good moment to just touch on the idea of acoustic privacy, which is a very important component that a lot of people need to be thinking through when figuring out which of these solutions they need out there in space division and flex space. Our product is a speech private system. It's very good at creating private environments within a similar function. We don't do top and bottom seals, we do verticals. And it is a 1/4 inch wall, so it does provide a good amount of speech privacy. That said, if you need a true acoustic wall for autonomous division, you may need to have a top and bottom seal type system. Our priority is more about making it beautiful, flexible, and private. So here's an example of pivot doors, another solution that we offer. Pivot doors tend to be in concert with our sliding systems, something that you might use for functional reasons or for compliance reasons if you need an egress door. And yet sometimes they're specified standalone, like in this example with a phone booth at a co-working facility. Pivot doors, really simple to operate. And again, a lot of times you're going to see examples of them working in conjunction with our other systems. This is just an example of that same office conversion we did where we had the pivot door standalone. Now this case study just shows, it's kind of a Pilates center, a workout center, wellness center, where our pivot door is striking to and opening and closing off of one of our fixed walls. So you can see here on the right, it's a pivot door, and on the left there is a fixed panel that it strikes to. So we have locks that you can use. We have roller latches as well. A lot of ways you can use the fixed panel, the pivot panel. So now moving to folding systems, we kind of specialize on end folding these days. We used to do center folding, but sliding stacking solutions have really kind of supplanted center folding solutions in our experience. So the end folding solution still provides a lot of value in that it's great for small spaces where you really don't have room for a stacking area, but you really want to have that flexibility where the panels are actually stacking within the opening. So it's really great for tight spaces. There is a bit of a restriction on panel size for this. You're going to want to keep it to 3 foot wide max. You know, folding systems have a lot of dynamic forces that the other solutions don't. When the panels slide, you can see how they cantilever and hang themselves over there. It puts a lot of stress on the hinges, on the pivot points, on the lead carrier. So a narrower is better. There are systems out there that you could work with that are okay for wider, but with no floor track, if you want to keep it beautiful and make it easy to operate, 3 foot wide max is how we do it. Fixed panels. Fixed panels are something that you can definitely use as a standalone divider. And I would just say that oftentimes for us, it tend to be used in concert with some of our movable systems like sliding or pivot doors, as you'll see here as an example. Back to the example we showed a moment ago, pivot doors working with fixed panels. And you can see the animated GIF there is showing a slider in front of the fixed panels. In the next slide, you're going to see that. This was a co-working facility where you see a wall mount slider closing off an office that's cordoned off by our fixed panel system. Just moving through this here so we have some time perhaps for some questions. Okay, so I'm not sure you'll be able to hear this. Normally this works well in my regular webinar technology. I'm going to press play and then you're going to hear an example of what the acoustics are like in the conference room in Manhattan that we have in our office, our conference room, with our system. So I'm going to try it. Hopefully it works. I'd love to get some feedback, maybe internally from my team, but it'll only take a minute either way. Here we go. How are radars with sound? Listen to my colleagues next door.
It's just the cost of this license. So we remove the cost. So we were in that long. We remove the cost of the frame, but we leave everything else. The steps. Plus that. Thank you for the reference. Okay. Thank you.
So I love showing that because clearly it's not a high-tech video. It's just a camera phone. But it really does kind of highlight, a lot of times people get caught up in STC ratings, which are of course done in a completely quiet laboratory environment. And most of us work, operate, and live in spaces with ambient noise. And when there's a certain amount of ambient noise in a space, it's much simpler to create a level of privacy with a lightweight divider within that space. Now, if you have absolutely no sound in a space and you have hard materials, hard floor, hard walls, no sound absorption, it's going to be very challenging to create a private environment. In our environment, and that you just saw that example, there's server noise, HVAC noise, office chatter, street noise. Those are all the kind of things that can allow and mask enough to create the kind of privacy a lightweight divider can do. So our product's been very successful dividing spaces with an equal function, similar decibel level. So whether it's private dining or office to conference room or office to hallway, there's lots of areas where creating a lightweight division and privacy cuts down enough of the sound so that people can get into a zone, either for focus or make a phone call or tune things out. Now, this slide here is just one I like to show as an example. We don't currently show 90-degree solutions on our animated menu of systems, although we do them all the time. So, working through Bo and Acelabs, when you get put in touch with one of our team members, we'll be able to coach and help and actually draft in CAD the examples that you may want to do. Let's say you want to do a pocket wall that divides a space that meets another pocket wall right in the middle. We would help you align where the stiles are going to be, where the verticals are going to be. Do you need an edge gasket for that? Or you might want to have a stacking system that slides 2 panels out and then turns 4 panels to the right and creates a room. Those are the kind of things we do all the time. So just want you to know that we are here to help you. So, obviously you're going to get in touch with Bo and Acelabs. We have a comprehensive website that should give you lots of information. It's also a good way to get in touch with us. We take your drawings as an example, whether you do a napkin sketch or you do a CAD plan, and we would turn your drawing into one of our drawings, which would represent the system to the 16th of an inch in each of the different openings. And as I mentioned earlier, our production times are anywhere from 4 to 5 weeks for a laminate line and 10 to 12 weeks for our veneer line. But you don't have to wait that long. So for instance, if you specify us in a project, we can actually advance tracks to the job site within a week. So a builder doesn't have to sit around and wait for the beautiful panels to arrive that should be arriving with furniture. Our product is not a field prepped product. Our product arrives as a fully engineered system. You take it out of the box and hang it in place. There's no drilling or finishing or anything that's being done to the product in the field. It should all have been done in the factory. So when we send the tracks to the job site, they can frame it out, put it in the header while there's still sheetrock and ladders around. That's a good time to have that track work done. And then the panels arrive with the furniture or just before the furniture. So that's just an overview. I know there's a little bit of Q&A. I see a couple of red dots on some questions that may have come up. Bo, I'm happy to open the floor to you or to our team to usher in the next chapter of our presentation.
Totally. Yeah. So we definitely have a few questions that popped up already and want to encourage folks again, feel free to submit your questions or raise your hand. I'll keep my eye on seeing if anyone's hand is raised. You don't have to turn your video on, but you can talk out loud if you've got like a project specific question or something that's easier to explain that way. And a reminder that the poll is still live. So if you didn't answer that, feel free to do so. And then with that, I'll go ahead and get started. So it looks like a lot of these were about sound, which makes sense. So that video was definitely really helpful. But Richard asked if yeah, Richard asked, how do these panels perform acoustically? So I think we pretty much covered that. And then Robin also asked about STC ratings. So that one, it looks like we've answered.
I could field that a little more. So the we had an ASTC test done in situation in our conference room in New York. And one of the things that they had suggested as an improvement would be to do vertical seals. And at the time, we were just doing large overlaps. A 3-inch style, 3-inch rail is just perfectly overlapped. So one of the innovations that that we put in place, and I can share a screen, was vertical gaskets and seals. So I'm going to give you an example. Sorry for scrolling a little. Okay, here we go. So in the overlap of our bypassing systems and sliding walls, we have a felt that is mounted to the stiles, the vertical stiles, and on each side. And it juts out in the gap so that when the panels, and they're offset. So when the panels come together and they close off the space, 2 of these felt gaskets kiss in the overlap, and that is an enhancement that was done even after that demonstration that we did that I showed you a moment ago. So, you know, we think one of the big conversations you'll have with anyone that you work with us will be, what is the level of acoustic privacy that you need? We want to make sure that you're not using us in something that you would be disappointed. There are a lot of times where a lightweight divider does a great job of creating the proper space division and the proper privacy. There are times where, especially, and I like to characterize it as autonomous use. If you're dividing the space and on the other side of that space, someone is going to rent it out and wants to be able to use it for a completely different type of event that has a level of noise or sound that's going to be at a much different level than on the other side, then I think our product may not be ideal. It just depends. You know, there's times where that it does work because you're just trying to cut the noise a bit in a lot of hospitality environments. But for instance, like a law office, if it's a well-sealed law office and you've got offices and desks right next to where you're going to divide the space and you don't want anyone to be able to overhear details of a conversation at all, so you may need an acoustic wall for that. We may not be the best product for that example.
Great. All right, let's see. Ray asks, do you have a product that can be used facing the exterior? And then they say like towards, and seems like they maybe got cut off, but yeah, exterior.
You know, what I would say about that is our product is like moving furniture. The construction of the product is such that it can't get rained on. Like we do humid environments all the time, bathrooms, doors, you know, or tropical environments where there's lots of exposure to the outside air. But getting rained on directly, having exposure to water saturation is not what our product is designed for. That said, I have 4 pallets of experimental UV rated waterproof MDF frames that I wanted to experiment with for some specific type of indoor-outdoor environments. So if you have something that is mainly going to be installed in a way that wants to create some flexibility, but doesn't need to seal out the outdoors, you're just trying to close off that space, that would be something I'd be interested in looking at and collaborating with you on, and give you some examples of what we could do with that particular batch. So it isn't our forte. It is something that I'm looking into in certain examples where that makes sense.
Cool. I've gotten that question a few times about Raydoor's products, so that's exciting to know that there's something in the works.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Looks like that was it for questions for now. So I'm going to put in a call for anyone else who has a question. And I just kind of wanted to tell a little story about my experience learning more about Raydoor the first time. So part of what I do at Acelab is help out architects anytime they have a research question, they're using our site and they are looking into something and not really sure where to head. So recently I had an architect reach out to me about a project they were doing where they were designing an interior wall system for a bathroom, and they could not get the panel inserts. The panel insert lead times were crazy long, really expensive, coming from Europe, and just like couldn't find the right option. And, the wall had already been framed. They had done that, with their contractor. So they were really in a pickle trying to, be able to complete this system. And I just wanted to kind of mention that when I learned more about Raydoor systems, I was like, oh, wow, I wish I had been able to refer this to this architect a few months ago, and really saved a lot of the trouble of, having to coordinate multiple pieces and a lot of components that go into these systems. So I think that that's just like such a huge value prop. I used to work in interiors a lot myself when I was practicing architecture, and I know the amount of coordination that designing these systems can take. So having one that shows up, with all of the systems in place where you don't have to kind of manage multiple different vendors, I think is just really a huge time saver.
I appreciate that. I absolutely think, like, people sometimes say, who are your biggest competitors? And it's absolutely a designer sitting down with a mill worker and a parts catalog and like going for it. And like, there's a time that should be done. We're not going to solve every single one of those, but if the aesthetic of what Raydoor represents falls within a spectrum of what you're trying to achieve, I think you'll find that we're going to be giving you a fully warranted solution that's really, when you look up close and see the detail of the product, the construction is going to make you happy. The design is going to make you happy. And this is all we do. We don't make millwork or shelving or furniture or chairs and stuff. Like, one thing I think would be worthwhile showing, if I have more time, Bo,
Sure.
to show a little something.
Yeah, go
So
for it.
on our website, I'm just going to demonstrate the kind of detail that how it works, like from a sort of 50,000-foot view, jumping into it. So let me just see if I could share this real quick. So this page is that animated GIF page, right? So we want to be able to scan through this and just say, what do we want to use? This is a new feature. Let's say we were talking about 3 panels that disappear into a pocket. This kind of speaks to how we kind of make it straightforward. So seeing the options that we have, this just shows quickly the different downloaded pre-engineered solutions that we have now. Whether these will be on your site, Bo, I guess we can see if that's going to be that these are on there too. But I just want to show you the level of detail when you zoom in. Soft close download. So here it is. So like, looking into each of these, you can see any one of those animated GIFs is going to show this level of detail around all the systems. And one I want to zoom in on here would be the pocket wall. When I say we don't do shelves and other things, well, here's an example. Flush bolts that telescope out of the floor to create stability are included. They're in there already pre-mortised. The finger pull that gets the panels out of the pocket is included. Anything that is decorative and also functional is going to be included. This piece here, this PCP, pocket concealment panel, is a piece of primed white MDF that's pre-drilled and pre-indexed to mount to the trailing panel, such that when it's put in place, when all the panels come out of the pocket, it closes the gap made by the other panels to make it seamless, to close it off for aesthetics, close it off for acoustic privacy, and for just not having an unfinished space. Like, who's going to think of that detail? So I kind of like to show off that we're thinking of all these details so that you don't have to, and it's all made to work in concert with itself. So that level of detail is what's there in all of our different systems that can be downloaded. And again, they can be in Revit and they can be in CAD. So it's just sort of like that sort of whole world of really fine interior design finishes. We really want to be on the mood board with the materials. We want people to be using our stuff as basis of design, or we want to match whichever flitch or actual color tone that you're trying to do for the frame or what have you, and pull that interior design component into an animated real world flex space environment that has all the architectural components needed for it to be successful. so that everyone in the project feels like, oh, that was easy, that worked out great. If you have any one of them, have GC, architect, or interior designer, has one phone call to make, which would be to Raydoor for that particular opening or that solution, if you will. So.
Well, it looks like we've got another question. Are finger pulls ADA compliant? This person's assuming they wouldn't. Is that correct?
That's interesting. Well, I'm glad you asked that. I mean, sure that's not someone from Raydoor, because it's like falling perfectly into something.
Don't think
The reason I say that is because I recently redesigned the edge pull. In general, because I also do CEUs for HSW, for AIA and IDCEC. Then we get into ADA in very much detail. But in general, if you can operate either lock or operate, open and close a panel with a knuckle or an elbow, it defines it as ADA compliant. Now, I'm just going to pull that up. We have a little bit of time. I'm going to throw up another photo. We have till the end of the hour.
Yes, yeah. Got
Let me just give you an example, because like it is a bit of an art than a science with respect to ADA. So I'm going to see if I could pull this up and show you an example real quick. Okay. So looking at this, for example, the edge pull that we used to use was a finger pull, and it was not ADA compliant. Here's an example of it. There's no way that you can really use consistently a knuckle or an elbow to operate a panel like that. Now, we recently redesigned it because we have a twin frame design. And that last one was not, people were not experiencing it as very successful. This was an idea I had actually 15 years ago, but before we were able to actually make good on it, there were many other priorities for the company to grow before we could do every little design detail we wanted to. But I'm really proud of this because we've recently implemented this on the website. It's our new edge pull that I believe it's possible to use it as ADA compliant, although we can't say officially because we just released it. We have to have it tested, but this is how it works, and judge for yourself. Really excited about this. A new edge pull. So, essentially, so much better than the old one. What I want to say about that is, essentially, if you're able to trigger that out with a knuckle, and then you're able to pull the door out with it, it might be ADA compliant. And if it's not, we may have to adjust some of the protrusion on the top in order to allow it to be. But like the first instinct of it was, this is just going to be easier for people to use. So yeah, we hope it's ADA compliant. In a lot of cases, if you're going to try to make it ADA compliant, the way you would do it would be to just specify ADA pulls, and you'd leave the panel out in the opening. So just to show you that real quick, on the Raydoor website again, let's just jump down to an example of, let's just go to view all systems, and let's just look at, we'll go back to pocket walls. Going into pocket walls, below the downloads, you've got a gallery. You've got frames that you can, this will show you really quickly the different options for frames. Again, this may be on the Acelab site as well. Translucent materials, patterns, these are optional. Don't need to use a pattern, but I'm getting you somewhere. Hardware. So again, the edge pull is included in the price for the hardware, but if you want to do ADA compliant, you'd probably specify ADA pull like this, and you would simply set the track stop to not permit the door to go all the way into the pocket, which is what you generally do to make it ADA compliant. So it's not as slick per se, but if we can make this one ends up becoming ADA compliant, then it might achieve that goal. But this just shows you how you can also select key locks, thumb turn locks. It shows you an example. In this case, there's a variety of hardware components. I just want to highlight that you don't need to go here. For instance, if you specify a pocket wall, it's going to come with the edge pull. It's going to come with the flush bolts that create stability for it on the floor. You just go here if you want extras. So that's all I wanted to show you there.
Awesome. Thank you. I have a question that's kind of related to ADA, but I was just wondering, I was recently talking to an architect about a big project that was like a campus. and they were looking for operable wall and door systems. And I was wondering if you've ever done any like motorized or automatic systems where there would be like a button to kind of push and open the wall.
Absolutely. We've been automating single sliders. Once the pandemic really hit, we started working with a third party to do wall mount sliders that you could like walk up and they'll open. You could do it with your phone. There's a lot of technology for that. And we're actually still working on a turnkey solution because right now it's still custom. So if you wanted to do that, we would just put you in touch with our partners for that. And they would do that as a third party. So the door system would be installed. There are some drawings that would be coordinated for it, whether or not you want the motor in the wall or you want the motor surface mounted and things. All of our systems work with it except sliding, stacking, and folding. So straight sliding solution, bypassing solution, wall mount sliders, all of that works with it. And there's a lot of technology that really integrates now into your app. You have an app on your phone and you can like, if you've got the right phone, it'll open for you. Or let's say you want to lock it, you can lock it and it'll show you, oh, someone's in there already and it won't let you in. But I personally like the low tech one with a little thing on the wall that you can just hit with your elbow and it'll open the door. So we have a lot of different ways we can automate panels. And one of the other things that I think is still important to highlight, when people see our product, they always think, well, that's a sliding glass door, and it's not glass. And there are some advantages. There's times you need glass, but in so many places, in so many ways that our product has solved from a cost standpoint and long-term maintenance standpoint, having a lighter system makes it so much easier. For instance, when you do use a motorization system with our product, the motors are half the size of what's required in most industrial applications because our product's so light. That helps keep costs down, and it also helps long-term maintenance. A lot of these sliding doors we see in hotels and places where we think sliding doors really make sense, that are big and heavy, they kind of beat themselves up over time. They put all that weight and inertia on this track stop, and that track stop was designed for a few cycles, sure. But if they didn't install it perfectly in the blocking, it's going to start rocking itself kind of out of the wall, and it starts to sag, and then it starts to rub the floor, and then it just doesn't work well anymore. So a lot of sliding systems out there that would really work well for space management, I think would work way better if the systems were lighter in general.
That makes sense. All right, looks like we've got one last question with a few minutes left from Daniel. I know Daniel. Hey, how's it going? Is there an alternative to the MDF, or is this MDF VOC free?
Is it VOC free? I know it's low VOC. If Ted were on this, Ted, are you on here? Ted would be able to answer that. I know there's a stringent law in California that we comply to with respect to the MDF itself. I have to get back to you on that. I really appreciate that. That was a good question.
And then one more, are there any installations that you know of in like the Cleveland, Ohio area?
Probably. We've been in business 23 years. We ship all over the country from like, not day one, but day two, you know, so we've been out there for a while, and I'll look into that for whoever asked. We'll look into that and see if we can give you like a spectrum of places, because, you know, initially starting in residential, the answer would have been no, but then when we started doing commercial and hospitality, there's lots of amenity spaces in public areas that you can go look at. So while we don't have showrooms all over the country, we do have examples all over the country.
Cool. Can go on a little like Easter egg hunt for Raydoor.
We have a map. So we'll be able to pull that together for.
Oh, that's super fun. Okay, great. Well, yeah, we'll follow up with you after the event as well. Okay, cool. So everyone's got 1 minute if they have any questions. If not, you'll have the ability to connect with all of us after the event. It looks like quite a lot of you were looking for information from today's speakers, so that's awesome. We're going to connect you over on Acelab, and they'll be able to get you all of the info you need, whether that's price quotes, samples, connect with a design professional. Really, they've got a great team on hand, so we will definitely get you all of the info you need. And just wanted to say thank you once more to all of our participants. I know this is a real busy week for architects, so we really appreciate anyone who took the time to come and learn with us today. And thank you so much, Luke. That was a really awesome, informative presentation, and I've been really enjoying learning more about Raydoor. And
Thank you
thank
both. I've been learning a lot about you guys too. It's very impressive what you're putting together.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Looks like we're at the hour. So with that, we will finish up for today. And I've ended our poll. So that's all. Noah says thank you. Thank you, Noah. And thanks everyone else. All
Thank
right.
you.
Have a good
Thank
one.